Have you been looking for a hassle-free way to reduce your taxes, keep your employees longer, and save for retirement? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Heart-Centered Money Conversations, a series for financial wellness. My name is Laura Plahuta, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm an emotional clearing practitioner, and this is Kristen, and she's a financial wellness coach. And can we redo that? I just saw wellness and I said wellness.
Oh,
Kristen's a financial wellness coach. You are, but that's not what we usually say. I guess I could have still said that.
that's okay. Yeah, no, we can start again.
Okay. Have you been looking for a hassle-free way to reduce your taxes, keep employees longer, and save for retirement? Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Heart-Centered Money Conversations. My name is Laura Plahuta, and this is Kristen Mabee, financial coach. And this is Heart-Centered Money Conversations, a series for financial wellness. And this is going to be an episode for you if you are somebody that does not already have a group RRSP plan, or maybe you don't know what it is because it was brand new for me and that I didn't know what it was either. Or if you are a business owner or somebody who wants to learn more about how your specific group plan works. And so last week we talked all about segregated funds and how they may be beneficial for retirement. So if you're interested in that, you can go back and check that episode out. And group plans are another way to help you to get more value from your money, which is what this whole series is about. And before we dive into this episode with Kristen, and just a reminder that this series is for educational purposes only, we are here to share our experiences, things that we've learned, and as always, take everything through your own filter. And our whole intention with this is really just to provide you with more education on financial topics so that you can create greater financial security and financial freedom for yourself and your family moving forward, and no longer just putting your blind trust in people for your financial decisions and really taking it into your own hands. So without further ado, Kristen, you want to take it away for Group
Beautiful.
RRSPs?
Yes, that's so good because a lot of the times what I see in the industry is that people make things so complicated, like the financial advisors or planners or whatever you want to call them. And it's because they want you to just trust that they're going to make the right decision for you.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that you said that, Laura, because it's all about empowerment and making decisions for yourself and understanding, or at least like get a foundation so that way you can kind of dive deeper, right? When you're working with somebody, maybe then you know the right questions to ask and those kinds of things. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited to talk about group plans because I think it's an area that really allows us to be able to help more people. And so if you're an employee or an employer, you're going to get value out of this one. First, I want to just kind of chat like, what is a group plan? What is a group RSP plan?
Perfect place to start.
Right at the beginning. So, a group RSP plan is a group registered retirement savings plan. Essentially, it's very similar to an individual RSP. So, it's a retirement plan, but you do it through your work. So, it allows you to basically put money automatically into your retirement savings before it's taxed. We're going to get into that a
It's
little bit
huge.
more. But yeah, it allows you to save money on taxes. And like, let's be real, who doesn't want that? Yeah, every day. So there's a lot of different things that kind of go into it. So let's jump in. And I just wanted to share before I even kind of like talk about both sides, the employer and the employee, I wanted to share a story about somebody that we worked with that was setting up a group RSP plan. And essentially what happened is he said to us, I want to make sure that my employees are taken care of even when they leave. He felt like he wanted to make sure that whether they retire or they move to a different position, like a different job, that they're still going to have some security. He felt responsibility for them to just like do what's right and just help to educate them even around finances. And I thought that was really powerful because it's like, yes, there's all these like you get to save money on taxes and all these other benefits, but it's really cool when you can add like life value to people, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
by simply helping them set up a retirement savings because a lot of times what we find, and I've heard this from so many people, is that they won't start saving unless they have something through their work, right? I talked with somebody like she was retired at the time, but she said the only reason I started saving is because somebody came to my work and talked to us about money and finances, right? And so it's really exciting that a group RSP plan can really have this ripple effect on people from, into the retirement years. Like she remembered this was like 40 years ago. I think she said that she heard this,
Wow.
that she was introduced to that group plan. So let me jump into what is the group plan? Like, why do you even care about it? So basically what happens is when the group RSP plan is set up from an employer's perspective, an employer can decide to contribute to the group RSP plan or they don't have to, right? Maybe it's just a tool to help their employees save. But this helps a lot with retention too, because like I said, it shows people that you care about them. You want them to do well, right? Obviously, if you're putting money into it as well, they're going to be super excited, but it's not necessary. So the employer has full control over in terms of like how much they put in for each individual employee too. So a lot of group plans that I see match 4%. So the employee, this is gonna get complicated. Employer, employee. There's gonna be a lot of times I say that today. So the employee will put 4% of their pay into their group RSP plan, and then the employer will match that 4%. But if the employee decides to do 2%, then the employer will match 2%, right? But if the employee puts 5% and the employer says we're only doing up to 4%, they'll still put in that 4%. So there's a lot of value in that, but the employer has full control over how much. So they can even do it like a tiered system. So maybe they say, if you're eligible to be part of the group plan after 3 months of working here, we call like the probation period right here in Canada. So they might say, from 3 months to 1 year, we'll match 2%. If you put in 2%, we'll give you 2%. From year 1 to year 5, we'll give you 3%. If you're
Gotcha.
here after 5 years, we'll give you 4%. And that again gives incentive for the employees to stay longer because they know they're going to be able to get more down the road.
Right.
But they can say everybody gets 4%. So the point here is really the employer has full control over how they structure that, which is really nice from an employer standpoint because you're not stuck. And you don't have to do 4%. You can do 1% or a half a percent, right? Like it just really depends on what you choose to do. But just for some examples. So the other thing is in terms of like having control over how these plans work, the other things people look at is like, well, what about taking money out of this plan? So just like individual RSP, which we have a whole episode about it, it'll be linked down below if you want to learn about RSPs. But basically, when you take the money out, it is taxed, right? So it works the same that way. But so the employer can say, they really have three options. They can say, you can't take this money out as long as you're working for us. They can say, you can take the money out, but you just need to ask us first, right? Sometimes you have to get a letter from HR. Or they say, like, do whatever the heck you want.
Free
These
for
are kind of
all.
three options. And again, it just comes down to the employer and like what they want in terms of having that stickability. They might say like, okay, we don't want you to take money out because we want you to stay around longer, and that might be an incentive for people to stay around longer, right? So it really depends on what the employer wants. But most small businesses, like they're pretty flexible in my experience. So any questions about the employer side?
No
No.
questions. Anybody
Okay,
else
cool.
have any questions? If you have questions, just feel free to throw them in the comments and Kristen can answer them for you.
Yes, love that. Thank you. And then well, like, how does that affect taxes? So from an employer's perspective, if you are contributing to the group RSP plan, you get to write it off the same way as income. So obviously, if you're putting some more money in, you have more write-off, therefore saving taxes. So that's kind of what that looks like and why there isn't an advantage to contributing to the plan as well from an employer. So there's retention, obviously, because people are sticking around longer because they have like this incentive to work. It's really interesting, actually. I see a lot of times like people will take a lower paying job if it has benefits,
Yeah.
right? So like as an employer, it's like something just to think about is like how can you just give the most value to people,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the employer side. But on in the employee side, it's like, why the heck do I care about this? Why don't I just do it on my own? Okay, let me tell you why. And it's really exciting. So basically, one advantage is that you can automatically set it up so it comes off your paycheck. It's like the pay yourself first. We talked about this, I think it was episode 2,
Yes,
right?
a
Maybe
long time
one.
ago.
Like the pay yourself first, right? So that money is coming off before it even goes into your bank account. So you're putting money towards your retirement savings right away and you're building up that wealth. So that's one advantage, right? And the employer can set it up so the employee does a specific dollar amount or a percentage, right? So it's really what is easier for that financial administrator of the company. So you can even just talk with your employer and say, like, what are my options? And how much can I put away and like what makes the most sense? Sometimes it doesn't make sense to do like if they match 4%, sometimes it doesn't make sense to do more than 4% because they're not necessarily getting a strong rate of return. For example, that not all cases, but like look to see like what you get when you're actually contributing, right? So just free money is free money, right? So max that out. But the other thing is that the money that you invest, the employee, it comes off gross. So it's before your taxes. And that's like the biggest thing when it comes to a group RSP and why it is something really to consider because it helps you reduce your taxes. So I'm going to share a quick slide to show you because it's a little bit hard. It's a lot of numbers. So let me just share my screen here and go over that with you. All right. Ba, ba, ba. Okay. So we're looking at the group RSP plan versus an individual plan. So with a group RSP plan, because it's before your taxes, if you put $100 goes into your group RSP plan, right? So $100 off your paycheck. You get paid $1,000, $100 goes towards your group plan. You now have $900 that will get taxed, right? So this money is not taxed, and that's why it's important. So your balance in your account is $100. So what if you go through an individual plan? You're like, I'm just gonna, start a plan on my own. I'm not gonna do it through my work. What's the difference? So say you have your paycheck, it's gonna get taxed. So if we say you had $100 gross, well, now that $100 is gonna get taxed. We're gonna use a 30% tax bracket. So now you only have $70 that you're able to contribute, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you do get a tax deduction. So we know if we put money into our RSPs, we get a tax deduction, we get money back for our we call tax return, right? But they only give you 30% if your tax bracket is 30% off of what you put in. So in this case, that's $21. 30% of 70 is $21. So now if you add $70 plus your $21 return, that's a total of $91, which means that you paid an extra 9% in taxes, right? So in here, you're gonna pay 30% tax, for example, on what's remaining of your paycheck. But here you're gonna pay that plus an extra 9% because you're not getting this full 30% off of the 100 back at the tax return. So you actually end up paying more taxes through an individual plan. And
Gotcha.
so it's like we're using $100, but like let's say it's $100 per pay, right? Say it's like 12 or $2,400 a year or more, right? That's 9% off of all of this money. So
Mm-hmm.
it could be really valuable to save taxes when you're doing it through a group plan versus an individual plan.
Right. And
Any
so I guess like if you have the opportunity for a group plan, it would be definitely check that out because I think if it was me, I would just basically be weighing like what would the option be like for me to take it out in the future. Obviously, you're saving money, so it's best to do it through the group plan. But then I would also probably want to know whether it's the first, second, or third option that they're giving you for how when you can take money out of it in case you do want to use that money, or like what your plan is for that. So there's
Yeah.
a little bit to
Yeah, for
consider
sure.
there.
It's like really understanding like how your group plan is set up. Because like there are like not every group plan is the same,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like really understanding that because like say you want to use the first time home buyers, well, you need to know that you'll be able to take that money out potentially before you leave your work,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's
Awesome.
obviously like a lot of things to consider, but
Mhm.
if you're doing the RSP, then typically the group plan might make more
Yeah.
sense,
And it's worth
right?
checking into because like if you get any money that you can get like to save like that, it's going to add up over the course of however long you're with your employer, right? Especially if you're planning on being in with your employer for that amount of time, it's going to add up and it's going to be massive when it comes to retirement.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like I always tell clients is like if you can be part of a group plan, it typically makes sense. I never like to say guarantees.
Right.
There's gonna be like one person that's like, it doesn't make sense for me. You know, typically it makes sense because you're getting free money, right? So if you get 100% return on your investment just for putting money in, even if you like have to pay taxes to take it out later, you're like, well, I got like 100% more in there just
Yeah.
because I did it through my work plan. Like
Yeah.
if you were debating, for example, like between a group RSP plan and like a tax-free savings, like yes, tax-free, there's no taxes, but you're also missing out on all this money that could be going into it,
For sure.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of my clients, so something that people ask me too is like, well, what happens when you leave your job? Is like what happens when you leave your job is typically they can roll it over into an individual plan and then you still have control over it, right?
Gotcha. Okay.
So another thing that we do is like with clients is I mentioned like sometimes you don't necessarily get the strongest returns when it comes to group plans. So what we do sometimes is we'll move it if your employer allows you to move it into your individual plan maybe once a year or once every few years where you can start getting a stronger return in your individual plan. But like again, you're getting free money, so it's still a win. So
Mhm.
these are some of the things that you can do to kind of just like maximize that. And like kind of like the difference between what I do versus like some other group plans is I meet with the employees one on one to help them decide what their best investment option is for them. Like
Mhm.
everybody's situation is very different. Let's use like that house example, right? Like if you're buying a house like next year, you might not want to be in a growth or aggressive portfolio, right?
Right.
You just don't have the time. So we meet with them one on one to help them set it up. Where a lot of other plans, they give you like a list of investments. They're like, just pick one. Or maybe they have like a quiz and they like help guide you like a little bit, but they don't necessarily know like your specific situation. So
Mhm.
that's one thing that we really like to do. And then it also allows us the opportunity to like educate around it too and like teach like the rule of 72 or like pay yourself first, these kinds of things, right? Because like
Mhm.
those are things that are going to add value to your employees and they're going to feel like okay, like I'm going to be capable or feel empowered to make my own financial decisions.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I think that's really really empowering because like our goal is to help them double their money and like teaching them how to do that. And so it's just like a little bit more of like a personal touch, which I really appreciate. I wish I had that like
Mhm.
before I started in finance. Like the person that was helping me didn't really help me.
Yeah,
I guess is what it comes down to.
for sure.
So, if you are somebody who doesn't have a group plan, this might be an episode that you can send to your employer and just see if they might be open to having that discussion, if it's going to help them and help you. Like everybody wins kind of in these situations. Or
Mhm.
you can even just send it to somebody who maybe has a group plan but doesn't really understand how their group plan works, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
One other thing that I did want to address today as well is that sometimes I see that people have a group RSP plan, but they don't take action to get that going, right? And so, Laura, I wanted to bring that to you to see like maybe what are the emotional blocks that somebody might be having that they want to do it but they're not taking the action. Like there's something that's not aligning there. What are your thoughts on that?
I feel like it could be a few different things. It could just be like a lack of education of understanding the value of it. And then that's typically what it is, I find, which is why we love these episodes and I love these episodes
Yeah.
as well, is because it really is um, providing the education. But then also, a lot of the time, you can have a lot of fear around asking more questions too, right? From when we were young,
Right.
when we were kind of just told to shush and do as we were told and not like ask all these questions. Because when you're like a toddler, you're just asking a billion questions trying to learn life, right? And sometimes our parents are at capacity or busy and they're like, no, stop it. And we can build
Yeah.
beliefs around us, like not really using our voice in the fullest capacity to ask those questions. Or we may be afraid of somebody thinking what we're asking is stupid. There's so many kind of things that can happen underneath the surface behind
Yeah.
that. But I think the biggest thing is really the lack of education. So if anybody has questions around it, then definitely ask those questions. And also another thing is just like lifestyles, like we're living very busy lifestyles. And if we don't make it a priority and like, I know for me, if I don't like have it written somewhere where it's like that I can like look at it or come back to it, then sometimes it can slip my mind and I don't even think about it again until Kristen reminds me or somebody's like, hey, what about this? And you're like, oh shit, like I completely forgot about that.
I've been meaning to do that.
Right. So if it
Yeah.
is something that somebody's like really wanting to do, then definitely make it a priority for yourself. Write it down right now, put it on a sticky note, stick it on your fridge. Ask your questions here for Kristen. Yeah, there's lots of other things that can kind of hold people back, but that's what I can think of off the top of my
Yeah.
head.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And just like if it is something that you want to do, is like maybe even write down like what is the first step that you're gonna take and like set a date to it kind of
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
Because I have clients that we've talked about group plans multiple times. They have a group plan, they want to do it, but it's like just hasn't been a priority.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Another thing that
let's
kind of
sit down
comes
and set
through
a
for me.
time.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say another thing that kind of comes through as well is like when we're shoulding, right? Like I
Yeah.
feel like I should be improving my finances opposed to like I am wanting to improve my finances. That's a huge one, right? Because it's not actually us authentically wanting to improve this thing. It's us thinking that we should be improving this because we feel however, we feel shamed for our finances being a certain way where we believe they should be somewhere different, right? So if we're coming from that energy or emotion of like shame or we're feeling guilty for things, then it's not like that full alignment that really clicks us into action with things. So that's another big thing too. So if people aren't really like following through on it, it could just be like one of those should things where like I feel like I should be doing this or somebody told me that I should be doing this. So I'm doing it to please that person when in reality it's not actually something that I genuinely want to be doing right now because I know that I want to be bringing me and my financial future different, like in a
Mm.
different direction or place. So that would kind of be another big one.
Yeah, that's huge. I think that's really important. And then maybe even just like if it's something that you feel that way, is maybe write down like why it's important to you or like what you might value from it
Yeah,
and see if that aligns. So
for
that's
sure.
really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Because I can, like I can help you see like yeah, you can get free money,
Hmm.
but it's like I can't make you do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
And at the
So
end of the
it's
day, like if it's not aligned with you, then just don't do it.
yeah,
Like if you're
maybe
not
it's
going to
not
follow
right
through on it, you're
now.
just wasting time, like hopping on calls with somebody for this and that. And when you're not actually planning on taking action for it. So you could just like sit with yourself and you're like, you know what? Like this isn't a priority for me right now. Like that's totally okay.
Yeah.
Just be honest with yourself with where you're at and then come back to it at a time where you are actually excited about it and wanting to take action on it. And then it's just better for everybody involved. But it's a lot of like kind of conditioning and programming that we receive. So just kind of
Yeah.
awareness around it. But
Yeah, and I think like just know like you're not alone in that.
oh, 100%. Yeah.
Like like even us, like we want to grow our incomes and I'm not where I want to be financially. It's like whether you're like living paycheck to paycheck or you have millions of dollars, it doesn't mean that you're where you want to be financially and just know like
Hmm.
that's okay and just like discover like what makes sense for you,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So
And come back
and
to
then
gratitude for where you are in the present moment.
yes, and just take expectations away. I've been doing this
Yeah.
lately, and it's honestly been such a game changer. Being like, Now, like, I'm just okay with where I am.
Right? I know. I think a lot of it too is it's like, I don't know, like I know for me, like I'm such a go-getter and a high performer and whatever the heck else you want to categorize me as, and it's like I always want to do my best. I just always have. And it's
Yeah,
like really being easy on myself and gentle with myself. I'm like, yo, Laura, you've been doing like epic, like you're doing so amazing.
yeah,
Like you're not gonna be perfect at things, and
yeah,
ditching the perfectionism so you can actually just be like where you are and seeing the little things that you're doing and appreciating them and then like being excited for the learning or growth journey that's ahead. Because like
yeah,
until we die, like we're never going to be knowing everything. There's always going to be things to learn. And this whole perfectionism thing is just like another one of those childhood things to break because then you can't be perfect because there's no such thing.
there's no such thing, right? And it's like it can cause like a lot of stress. I struggle with that too, and that's like something I'm trying to break or working on breaking because it's like, does it really add more value to your life, right? If something is perfect, or if you
Mhm.
just like are like, oh, screw it, like I'm just gonna go
Totally,
for it.
yeah.
Good enough.
Yeah,
Accept
exactly.
the good enoughs. It's okay.
Yeah. And you can always
So
revamp it and like change it. I know even when we began this series, I was
yeah,
like I was nervous for the series. It's like starting it, but it's like no, just put them out there and you're gonna get more comfortable with it as you go and you just do. You just keep going and going and going and going and it keeps getting better and better. So it's like that for
yeah,
everything. But sometimes we forget that. Like I see that even with Lily. Like she's like learning how to grab things right now and it's like super simple. But I'm like, yeah, go girl, you got this. But it's
yeah,
like if we could only be like that with ourselves as adults. And I think that's really like the challenge is like being our own
yeah,
biggest cheerleader.
yeah. And just talking to yourself like you're talking to a child, right?
Exactly.
Just be
Yeah.
kind. Just be kind.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, you're
I
welcome.
think that being said, I'm going to jump into the homework if you are ready to do so.
Mhm.
I'm going to challenge you if you want to join your current group plan, if you haven't, and like I said, if it makes sense for you. Or talk to your employer about getting a group plan. Maybe this conversation is really inspired you and you wanted to take action and you're like, my work doesn't have a plan, but I wish it did, then
Yeah.
maybe share this episode or have a conversation with them. Or again, like comment below. And if you need some guidance around like how to bring that up, I can help that as well. And if you are an employer, maybe set up a group plan for your employees, right? So there's a lot of different options around that. And so I just want to thank everyone for taking the time to join us. And we really have talked a lot over the last few weeks about retirement savings and different things. And I think it's like just focusing on moving forward and setting yourself up for success. So take a look back. I hope there's some episodes, and if you want to leave us maybe which episode is your favorite, we'd love to hear that as well. But I would love you to tune into yourself, feel into your heart around your finances, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Amazing. Thanks so
Take
much,
care.
Kristen. Thanks everybody for being
Thanks.
here. Bye.
Bye.